I think that's a really good question. Well, it's like our families are dysfunctional. They don't like the function seems to be to create an inferior product, and that's unfortunate. But as a teacher, that's what I see a lot of. I see a lot of young people who don't know what they want to do and have no idea how to control themselves, and that seems to be a direct product of the family survival, or as you say in your question, this survival unit where they're only focusing on surviving the here and now and not really working towards being successful long term. So it really creates like this inferior, present focused student who just wants to have, and just young people in general, who just want to have fun, trying to figure out a way to just get by right now, and they're not thinking about the future.
Press the red button again.
I think that the children in the black community are more exposed to a little bit more than children that have white families, and they're more structured. For example, in the white community, you might not run into as many drugs, and you might not run into situations like that, whereas you're going to run into that in the black community. And because you don't have as strong as a family structure, it makes it kind of harder to cope with things, and it makes it a little bit harder because you have to deal with more, and you don't have that background that you need.
I think it does affect the black community because there are people that don't take care of their children, and they're not even in the church's life. So yes, I think it does affect them. And like I said, I know people that's moms that's not even in their life, and their dad hasn't even met their children. So I think it does affect the black community.
The social, economic conditions of African American men can, in my opinion, are greatly attributed to the high incarceration rate of our black males, specifically from the ages of 18 to 24 years of age. However, this social conditioning is really reflective of the systematic disenfranchisement of black men in America that goes back generations, going back to the Willie Lynch theory of 1712 of divide and conquer, where the mentality of black males was not only altered, but the social along with the psychological effects of the Willie Lynch theory has trickled down to not only our community but to black men as a whole, in addition to the lack of resources socially, educationally, in addition to the lack of male figures in our families. There has been a systematic social breakdown of the black family between the black male and black females, therefore leaving our children fatherless and in many cases hopeless. And until we first and foremost start with our families and restructuring our families in regards to having sound families, starting with a father, a male figure who is the male nucleus of the family, who is not only a protector, a provider, a nurturer in his own right, then and only then will we be these examples to not only our families, but we ultimately will be an example to the world.
Yes, I do believe that the majority of African American men are males do overuse sex as a means of achievement, primarily because they've been limited in other spheres of influence, like their education. Normally they're alienated from education. They don't like education. They hate education. So as a result, they're not very successful when it comes to education. So, that is compensated with sex. Economically, a lot of African American males don't have really successful or affluent careers. So they tend to compensate for this with sex and having as many women as possible. A lot of us didn't have proper role models growing up, and our role models were womanizing people who had a whole bunch of women, and we thought it was cool. So we imitate that.
Yes, I feel like the majority of black men use sex to make them feel like more of a man. Simply because in the black community, men don't have a lot of rights, I want to say. I mean, they have rights, but it's certain things that aren't acceptable in the black community and certain things that you can't have. So if you wanted to get out and get a white collar job, you might not be able to do that, and that very well might play a role on how, what makes a man feel like a man. If he can't come home and provide for his family, which is what men generally tend to do, or they say they want to do. If they can't do that, they might look for other outlets to make them feel like more of a man. So
I think that men, especially teenage boys, do feel like they have to have sex in order to feel like a man, because if you're a 16-year-old boy, you never had sex before, your boys will say, oh, you're not a man, and da-da-da, and he never got some, da-da-da. So I think it does make men feel like you have to have sex in order to become a man in the black community.
For generations, black men have been seen and used to not only breed for the systematic usage of slavery, in addition to this psychological mentality that is developed that black men are just seen as breeders has permeated and is now pervasive amongst our society in this current day. As far as black men being seen as just breeders in our current society is really an issue that we need to address as the current generation of black men and black leaders. The astronomical numbers of children being born out of wedlock to unwed mothers really speaks volumes to the current situation that we are dealing with as far as within our people. But I do not believe that black men are strictly breeders. We are fathers, we are young men, we are brothers, sisters, we are sons, we are men of purpose, and we need to eliminate the ideology that we are placed here for the purpose of breeding. And as far as black men using sex as a dominant entity in how we matriculate throughout society really is a shame, and really does not speak to the essence of the root of our issue. Our issue is we need to again become sound members of our families, be strong men, and really control not only our sexual urges that may allow us to really have other issues as far as teenage pregnancy, unwanted pregnancies, different things of that nature. But however, we need to begin to educate our young men, teach them the role of black men in our families, in our society, in our communities, and in doing so, we begin to plant a new seed and allow that seed to come to fruition and to grow and to nurture the future generations. And teach our young men that you are here for a purpose. And we are not just breeders. We are not here to reproduce and leave unwed situations that aren't accountable in society. And then and only then will we rise and create a new generation of leaders.
So, like, if you have no role model on what it means to be a man, then it's really hard for you to become a man. It's possible, but it's hard. So, like, we react in a lot of different ways. Like, for example, one way we think manhood means you have a whole bunch of women. So we tend to have a whole bunch of women. We may think manhood means being a thug and being hard. So we do those types of things. And sometimes, if your only example is a woman, then you begin to believe that if I want to be an adult, I mean, who else am I going to imitate? If your father isn't around, then, because your family is headed by a woman, then you really have no other model on how to develop. So you do tend to become more feminine. You also, if your father has abandoned you for whatever reason, you also tend to have a negative view of men. You have a negative view of manhood. So you don't want to be what you believe is negative. So as a result, instead of becoming manlier, you become more feminine. Just because you're trying to avoid the negative, which you look at you look at manhood as a negative thing, and you don't want to be that. So you pick the opposite.
You pointed out that it was over 70% in 2008, I think, or 2009. It was over 70% of the households in the black community were headed by single females or whatever, like single parents. And I just think that absence of a father makes it kind of hard for black male youth to deal with situations that they would run into the community. Because whereas girls can say, "Oh, my mom told me that she did this, and this is this happened, and this is how she reacted." There's not a male to do that for a lot of the things that our black youth a lot of the things that our male black youth go through. And they don't have anybody to look up to or help them steer through whatever it is that they may be going through. They don't have anybody to identify with except for, their mom. And men and women are completely different, so.
I think the absence of a father figure in a young boy's life is very effective in the black community, because you need a strong male in your life to show you how to be a man. A woman can't teach you, a man, how to be a man. So I think the absence of a father is really a major part in the black community.
Children, specifically black boys without fathers are almost like someone taking a trip and not having a map or a guide. Black fathers are the patriarchs of not only the universe, but specifically with our children. And it is a travesty that our children, male or female, that grow up without fathers in their lives. And this is I believe a main contributor to why there is a disproportionate number of our African American males incarcerated at state and federal penitentiaries at this point. And this trickles down to the black family as a whole. A good reason, and a number of reasons, and a plethora of issues surround the very issues and absence of a black male influence. And the women, our black women, bear the burden of raising the families without a father figure in the home. Therefore, the offset of this, our children are suffering, specifically our boys. They need strong fathers who are protectors, who are mentors, who are breadwinners, who are our examples of men. And if black boys don't see this example, they cannot be taught or shown this example by our black women. They can gain strength, the nurturing and love and support from our black women, which they have done since the beginning of time. But only a man can be that example to our children. And until we address this issue, along with the previous issues, we will continue to be in the current state that we are in at this very point. So this is an all call to black men across America, across the world, to not only be involved with their children, but to spend quality time with their children. And to the gentlemen and to the brothers who choose the easy route out by not being involved in their child's life is not only devastating, but this is a devastating, catastrophic issue that continues to pervade our community and society in the world as well. So this is a call to all of our men to become involved with your children. If you are a father, if you aren't a father, get involved, be a mentor, volunteer, become a coach, teach, be an example to not only your relatives, but your surrounding neighborhood, so that we, each one, reach one to raise our nation.